First pitch I'll be going over is the fastball. For the fastball, I like to go on the backward C. I take my pointer and my middle finger, put them together, and go across the seams like this. The reason that I like going with the backward C rather than the normal C is because my middle finger is a decent amount longer than my pointer finger, and the natural curve of the backward C lets me have both of them equally on the seams, which lets me rip down evenly and create more spin. And so a lot of guys who don't have any cues when throwing the fastball, but me personally, I actually think about turning it over and getting on the inside of the ball. The reason I do that is because I have something called a supination bias, which basically means that when I naturally throw the ball, I tend to have my hand a little around it rather than straight behind it. So by thinking about turning it over, I'm not actually going to turn it over, but it's going to make my hand go from a little around it to directly behind it, which will let me generate more backspin to keep the ball up and fight gravity for longer. So since I throw from such a high arm slot, the spin axis of my fastball tends to be around 1215 to 1230-ish. The main use of my fastball is for setting up my off-speed pitches. When I locate it correctly, I can tunnel another pitch off of it, making the batter either freeze or swing and miss. I also can get whiffs on it, particularly when I locate it high in the zone. Since it has backspin, it can fight gravity, and when I locate it well, batters tend to miss under it. The second pitch I'll be going over is my knuckle curveball. So for my knuckle curveball, I take my middle finger and put it against this seam. I put it against it so I can leverage it and spin it more. And then for my thumb, I try and split the ball perfectly in half between my middle finger and my thumb. Then for my pointer finger, this is where it gets the name the knuckle curveball. Instead of having it lay flat, I spike it. The purpose of this is to have zero pressure in the pointer finger and have everything be controlled by the middle finger. Then with my ring and pinky finger, I just tuck them as far under as I possibly can. And so for the idea of a knuckle curveball or any kind of curveball is to generate the most amount of top spin possible. This will make it die down with gravity and get that signature 12-6 movement. And so the thought process I have when throwing this is just think karate chop and get my middle finger in front of the baseball. The spin axis of my curveball is around 6 o'clock to 6:15, which is pretty much true 12-6 movement. And it also has a lot of spin efficiency, around 93%. But the drawback of throwing a curveball with such high spin efficiency is that it's going to be a whole lot slower than my fastball. Comparing my knuckle curveball's velocity to my fastball, it's around 20% slower than it, making it by far the slowest pitch in my entire arsenal. The main use of my curveball is as a freeze pitch. Since it has such a big movement differential compared to the fastball, a lot of batters will simply take it when they recognize the pop out of hand. This allows me to freeze batters for called strike threes. Even when they do swing at it, they tend to hammer it in the ground, which also makes it a very effective pitch for turning over double plays for me. The third pitch in my arsenal is a kick changeup. So for the kick change, I take my ring finger and have it on the seam of the baseball with a two-seam orientation. Then, with my middle finger, I spike it so that the nail is kind of digging into the seam right there. I don't have it inside or outside the seam. I like to have it directly on the seam. And then for my thumb, I like to have it directly across from the ring finger, again, splitting the ball in half. And then the pointer and pinky finger just fall wherever they're comfortable. And this is a pitch where the grip takes care of it. I don't have any cues in my mind except for just ripping it as hard as I can. And so what happens is by spiking the middle finger, it tends to be the last one touching the ball. And when it's the last one touching the ball, it tends to kick the ball into more 3 o'clock rotation, as well as decreasing spin efficiency, which can lead to seam effects happening with the wake of the air. I like throwing it against lefties when they're early on my fastball. Even though it doesn't have as much horizontal movement compared to most changeups, it has a great deal of drop compared to my fastball. When I throw it correctly, it can drop up to 2 more feet than my fastball does. I tend to throw it exclusively against left-handed hitters, particularly when they foul off my fastball or they're early on it. When I locate it well low in the zone, batters typically don't do much damage on it. The next pitch is my slider. The first thing I do with this pitch is I find the seam and hook it with my thumb and have my pointer finger and middle finger rest along the seams naturally. They're going to be over the seams so I can leverage them to spin it more. However, I'm not putting any pressure in the ball with them. And my cue, it's very similar to my curveball, but instead of being a direct karate chop, I'm a little bit less supinated. And with the way I grip it and release it, what tends to happen is the pointer finger is the last one touching the ball, and it kicks it into more 9 o'clock movement. However, since I throw from such a high release slot, I don't usually get perfect 9 o'clock spin axis. It's closer to 8 o'clock. And because of that, it's more similar to a slurve, but I like to tag it as a slider. It has a significant more amount of glove side movement, especially compared to my curveball and my other pitches. It's around 11% slower than my fastball. It's not slow by any means, but it's not really a power slider like DeGrom's or Verlander's. It's more of a sweeping slider or a slurve, as I said. I primarily use it against right-handed hitters because it moves away from their bat path and their barrel. I either freeze them by having it start at their hip and then go into the zone, or for a chase, starting in the middle of the zone and then having it break outside of it. I sometimes use against lefties, but it's more so a pitch against right-handed hitters. These next two pitches I have not thrown in a game yet. I've only been experimenting with them. But as soon as I'm able to throw them consistently where I want for strikes, then I'll probably implement them. My fifth pitch is a cutter. The way I grab it is I take my middle finger and leverage it against this seam, and then with my pointer finger, I spread it until the tip of my pointer finger is touching this seam. The majority of the pressure in this pitch is on my middle finger. And since I'm a natural supinator, I'm also able to hold significant velocity with it. It's only around 4% slower than my fastball. When I find consistency with it and I'm able to locate it well, I plan on using it as a contact neutralizing pitch against left-handed hitters, primarily when I'm behind in counts. Last pitch I'm going to be talking about is the one I've been experimenting with the most recently, and this is called a power curveball. So the way I grab it is first I go with the C like this, but then I turn the ball until my pointer finger is resting on the seam, and then with the thumb, I kind of grab this seam to get a good grip on it. Same cue with my knuckle curveball, having the middle finger in front and karate chopping. However, since I have the pointer finger on the ball and it's more stable, I can rip it a lot harder. And what this does is it decreases the spin efficiency. Since my pointer finger is still on the ball, I'm able to hold a lot more velocity with the pitch at the cost of decreasing spin efficiency. While the spin efficiency of my knuckle curveball is extremely high at around 95%, the spin efficiency of this power curve falls significantly at around 30%. However, while the knuckle curve is over 20% slower than my fastball, this power curveball is only around 9% slower than my fastball. Once I gain feel for the pitch, I plan on using it as my primary whiff pitch on 2-strike counts. Since it has such high velocity, I believe it will be very effective at generating whiffs against both hands of hitters. That's my current pitch arsenal. If you have any questions or need me to clarify anything, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see you later. Have a good one.